Hi there, welcome. My name is Jill Teep. I'm from the Northwest Center for Occupational Health and Safety, and you are joining us live from the University of Washington in Seattle for the Green Chemistry and Chemical Stewardship Online Certificate Program Live Info Session. And I'm joined today by Carolina Meller from the Yale Center for Green Chemistry and Green Engineering. She is one of our instructors on one of the course programs of the full certificate program, and we're going to be talking with her today a little bit about her experience, about the course she teaches, and what its significance has been for the program and for the students she's been working with, and what some new content is for that program. So with that, I just want to let everyone know that you are currently in listening mode. So if you have a question for Carolina or myself, feel free to type it into the chat box and we'll go ahead and get to your questions. This is really meant to be like a conversational time where you can learn about this program, as well as we can respond and have a conversation about the things you're thinking about around these issues and about the program itself. So with that, I also want to let you know that we are recording today's session. So a link to the session will be coming out to you, along with the link to the registration page for the program. So you can learn some more information about the program and also share this recording with anyone else you think might be interested in joining the program this fall. And with that, we're going to dive into kind of introducing what the program includes, what a certificate program is useful for, what makes it and then we're going to we're going to have a little Q&A with Carolina to dive into some of the items I mentioned before, and then we're going to wrap up with kind of some nuts and bolts about what it's like to be a student in this program, the next steps if you'd like to participate, and that sort of thing. So with that, we're going to get started. So I mentioned I'm Jill Teep. I'm your course administrator, so I'm the person you'll talk to about any questions around logistics around the coursework, getting into the online learning system, anything like that. And then Carolina Meller is one of our, I believe we now have 5 total instructors who represent different specialties in green chemistry and green engineering, and she joins us from Yale, as I mentioned. We're going to be speaking with her in a moment. So why consider a certificate program? A certificate program is helpful because it's continuing education focused on a particular field. It links a series of courses that constitutes a coherent body of knowledge in a discipline. It's designed primarily for post-baccalaureate participants who are working in the field. And it was developed by UW Professional Continuing Education and an advisory board with folks that ranged from Boeing, REI, the Department of Ecology, several different companies, Intel, nonprofits in the sector who are working in the sector as well. So a lot of professionals who are using this kind of work in their workplace day and day, and they wanted to see this content come forward. So this is a board effort to put this content together along with our amazing instructors. The courses and instructors are approved by the University of Washington. And why a certificate? Courses contain practical information relevant to a professional working in a specialized field. This is really, there's some piece of this that will bring together some of that baseline and bring back some of that baseline understanding of chemistry, of toxicology. But really this is around practical tools you can use in your workplace right away. The instructors are recognized authorities in the professional community. A certificate helps give an opportunity to enhance or update your skills or knowledge and learn from other professionals. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but one of the cool things around this program is that you enter in where questions around topics in green chemistry and safer chemical transitioning all together. So you'll see people from all sorts of different disciplines working together on these same problems, and you'll learn so much from each other as well as from the instructors. We'll talk about that cohort-based learning a little bit more in a moment. A certificate credential can facilitate career advancement. I think a certificate is really a nice way to put something new and fresh on your resume that's got a little bit lower commitment time than a degree and maybe less of a financial commitment as well. I mentioned this before, this cohort-based system. I think that's something that all of our instructors and our students walk away feeling like they've gained new peers in the field, as well as people they have as resources that work in different industries. So there are people from private, nonprofit, governmental agencies, and those relationships that come out of this course continue forward. And I think that's one of the interesting pieces about this cohort-based coursework online together. You get to network with other industry professionals, like I mentioned. The course schedule is all online, and it's really flexible in its delivery. So you have all this stuff in front. We'll talk about kind of how the modules work a little bit later, but there's a lot of flexibility in how the scheduling works. A certificate takes less time and less financial commitment than a degree program, like we mentioned. And the certificate is an academic credential endorsed by the university. So what will you learn as part of this certificate program? You'll learn about reducing harmful substances through materials, decision-making, and chemical design, overcome common disconnect between chemical properties, toxicity, and human health. I think this is one is really vital. A lot of folks either have a basis in chemistry or maybe a basis in toxicology, but seeing those worlds come together with that human health impact really help stakeholders care about these issues that you are already interested in. And we'll consider how these factors influence material selection with consideration viable business decisions. So everything we try to transition to or consider a new process, it has to be a viable business decision. So this part is so key, and part of what makes this program so special. Learn how to identify sustainability issues related to green chemistry practice, and how to apply your newly acquired knowledge and skills to promote chemical stewardship. Again, that connection of green chemistry, toxicology, and business is really what makes this unique. So this program is divided into 3 courses. The first one is on sustainability, toxicity, and human health, and that starts September 23rd to December 6th. So it's fall quarter 2019. And then we roll into winter quarter on January 6th with Principles of Green Chemistry through March 13th, 2020, and that's with Carolina. And then finally, the spring quarter class is a assessment tools for safer chemical decisions. This is where you'll get a lot of really practical experience using the plethora of tools that are available for folks doing this kind of work. And that goes March 30th to June 5th, 2020. All of the courses are done online. And so we're going to talk now a little bit more about what all of these different courses include. So I wanted to just take a moment and introduce each of the courses to you. So for fall, this Sustainability, Toxicity, and Human Health, we have 2 instructors, Grace Lasker. She's the chair of Health Studies and senior lecturer, and also the School of Nursing and Health Studies at the University of Washington, Bothell, and affiliate faculty of Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences here at University of Washington, Seattle. And Kevin Wilhelm is MBA and CEO of Sustainable Business Consulting. He's also a University of Washington instructor in a couple of different courses. So he brings that business side to this discussion as well. So in this first course, we'll learn about how sustainability can be a key driver of business innovation. I think this is one where we can really see some case studies around what people are doing out in the field, particularly in the private sector. And it's really interesting to see where these things connect around, and then some of the cautionary tales around greenwashing. But what are some of the best practices that are out there, and how do we measure that kind of success? Understanding the fundamental ways where the human body interacts with chemicals, predictive toxicology, risk and exposure, dose response. This is a chance for folks that maybe don't have that toxicology background to start learning some of those principles and how it connects to decision-making around transitioning to safer chemicals. We'll talk about human health risks, regarding exposure to chemical agents and what that plethora of impacts can look like. And then we'll talk about different environmental hazards and examples that you've seen in the news: BPA, mercury, pesticides, heavy metals, etc. So we'll dive deeper into what those hazards look like, what's current in the news about them, and then what those considerations will be. So the second course part of the program is winter quarter, and this is Principles of Green Chemistry with Richard Morgan, senior process chemist and Modu Metal, and Carolina Meller, who's with us today, PhD, program coordinator, Yale Center for Green Chemistry and Green Engineering. And this course itself dives deeper into identifying chemicals by class. It's going to kind of be that refresh on the chemistry courses you took in college, kind of bringing back what things we need to know for this course. And then we'll talk about chemical properties for hazard assessment, which is the key piece for this course particularly. We'll investigate the transport and fate of toxicants in the environment and models for prediction of effective biological systems. Gaps in current knowledge base concerning health effects and environmental agents. This is a really important one for part of that how do we make choices going forward? And we'll look at persistence and bioaccumulation factors and ecological risk. And we'll talk about the historical and current role of chemical regulations in our society. It's a big piece of it as well. And different countries are often often approach this issue differently. So we'll learn about that. And then we'll talk about impacts to the environment and also the economy. And then very importantly, review the 12 principles of green chemistry while recognizing their role in innovation. We'll analyze the efficiency of various approaches to chemical design. We'll review basic chemistry nomenclature and the difference between, and understanding the application of green chemistry, impacts of solvent usage, identifying green chemistry alternative solvent systems, and then understanding guidelines for designing chemicals that have a lower inherent toxicity while investigating case studies for designing safer chemicals. I think for me, this was one of the most fun courses to go through because you really got to see how all of these ideas come together and how they start really being impactful for how we can move to using safer chemicals. And then finally, the third course is assessment tools for safer chemical decisions. This is in spring of 2020 with Pamela Eliason, the Senior Associate Director, Industry Research and Program Manager from the Toxics Reduction Institute at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. Formerly we call them TURI as well. This course will help you learn alternative assessment methodologies and accompanying decision rules, as well as US EPA alternative assessment methodology. We'll spend some time talking about the OSHA toolkit for transitioning to safer chemicals, and then all sorts of different tools that are really geared for workers to explore what their hazards would be to different chemicals or processes. We'll recognize decision-making frameworks for selecting chemicals. We'll discuss chemical hazard assessment tools in use by regulators, manufacturers, and retailers. And we'll complete a case study to assess hazards, classify hazards, and assign benchmarks. Discuss the history of third-party evaluation tools, their advantages and disadvantages, and use by business. There's quite a bit of information around tools that have evolved over the years and what each one is good at or not so good at. And so this is really, it's really helpful through this course to get to know the lay of the land of those tools and what's going to be effective for your needs. And then we'll dive real deep into those third-party evaluation tools, utilizing life cycle thinking and life cycle management. And then finally, there's a capstone project to evaluate a chemical product within a sustainable framework. And part of this is going to be using decision-making models based on all the data that you have available to using these tools. So that rubric around decision-making is also another key piece of being able to transition to safer chemicals that doesn't get quite enough attention until you dive into a program like this. Okay, and with that, I want to welcome Carolina to the session. Hi, Carolina.
Hi, Jill. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me today.
So, give us a quick introduction about yourself. Why are you interested in green chemistry, and how did you come to be at the center at Yale?
Well, Jill, so I actually joined the Yale group under Professor Paul Anastas more than 5 years ago, and almost immediately I got immersed in green chemistry education. But prior to joining the center, I received my PhD in molecular biology from University of Virginia. But even before I graduated, I knew that I didn't want to do a bench science. So that led me to more practical work at Technology Transfer Office, which then led me to green chemistry education at Yale. And as part of my job, I develop and co-teach classes for undergraduate and graduate students. I build curriculum in green chemistry. So example of this work was developing a novel green chemistry educational game that educates students in green chemistry and safer chemical design on how to make decisions while designing a chemical product that performs well but is not toxic to human and environment. And so everything from typical traditional undergraduate and graduate curriculum to quite unusual ones as a green chemistry educational game.
Yeah.
So currently, in fact, I'm involved with the project with the United Nations that decided to bring green chemistry to practitioners in all around the world. And so my role as part of this project is to develop educational materials and then deliver workshops that basically disseminates green chemistry and helps practitioners implement green chemistry in their businesses. And so in fact, I've been in green chemistry education for almost 6 years, and this was one of the best decisions I've made.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. That position with the UN sounds really incredible. Have you found are people excited to learn about green chemistry? Is it still, do you find that people haven't heard of it before, or do you think people are really catching on to this worldwide?
This is a really good question. A lot of people are doing green chemistry, but they don't know they are doing green chemistry.
Right.
And so, yeah. In many places that I've been to, I talked about the green chemistry, and I talked about examples of green chemistry, and they're like, oh, wow, so we are actually doing this, but we call it differently. And so, so for me, this was a great way to connect with people who are already there, but they do their work in silos. And so this project was great because it allowed me to connect with them, but also them recognize other players in green chemistry. So getting them in one room, in addition to the workshop itself, provided them with this additional link to others that do green chemistry in their regions.
Interesting. Part of what we do is professional development courses for health and safety professionals in the Pacific Northwest, and we work a lot with industrial hygienists, and it's similar. They do a lot of this sort of work. It's just labeled a little differently. Within the hierarchy of controls, it's elimination and substitution. It's not necessarily considered green chemistry as its own thing. So it's interesting to get these worlds together to realize that there's a lot of things in common, and we can learn from each other, which is exciting. So thank you. I wanted to ask you, how did you come to be involved with the certificate program, and what made you interested in doing an online format like this?
So the reason this program was even it even came to be was, in fact, in response to a growing demand for training for people who wanted to learn about green chemistry. And so many people over the years indicated that they would love to get more information on how to do green chemistry in their own backyards, and just needed something more than a lecture or a workshop. And so this certificate program, which is a year-long program, was a thought process between Yale University, UW, and 2 other schools that decided that, hey, why not put our brains together and put together the program that will deliver just that. And so, and I'm really glad that happened, because as far as I know, this is the only certificate program in green chemistry so far. And not many programs overall take such a holistic approach as this course is taking. So bringing about sustainability, business, and green chemistry and toxicology together.
Absolutely.
And this course just does it so beautifully.
Thanks. Let's talk for a minute about some of the nuts and bolts about the program. Can you talk about the availability of the instructors for questions, or if they need additional resources for maybe something they're working on at work right now?
Sure. So during the course, I am available via email anytime. And if there are any questions related to content, I usually reply within 24 hours. But I also monitor discussion fora that are assigned a couple of times and chime in with thoughts and comments. finally, for resources, I'm happy to send articles or direct you to other additional resources based on people's interests. So, we over the years, we developed a robust number of educational materials, which I'm also very happy to share. Basically, we want to make sure that you have all the help and resources that you need.
Excellent. Carolina mentioned these discussion forums. So one in each of the modules, there's a discussion question that'll happen. So part of your job as a student in the program is to address the question and give some analysis around that question. And it could be, picking a chemical of interest and answering certain questions or using certain tools around it and giving some context for the results that you have. And then the part of the job is to go through and make comments on other students' work. So maybe about another resource that they didn't mention, or another article on chemical X that they mentioned. So there's these discussion groups that happen, and it's great because you get all the students commenting, the instructors are commenting, and you end up learning a lot from each other through that process. So it's kind of it's a fun part of that program for sure. Caroline, can you give me an example of a typical assignment someone might come across? We talk about this discussion forum now. Is there another example of something that you've received from students that kind of stood out to you, or an example of an assignment itself?
Sure. So one of the assignment is to look at the green chemistry awards, and so look at critically at their description and decide what makes them unique and what made them win. So for me, this is great because students first are given background and tools, and then they have to use critical thinking and make a determination why this innovation was awarded and was so cool that it was recognized by scientific community. So once students discuss this, others can also chime in and recognize whether this innovation was truly did it really change chemistry world, or was it just a small incremental change? So for me, this is also fun because I see how people think and how they strategically discuss which of these innovations really made a difference and is useful for the community. The other kind of an assignment is having two chemical pathways to make a certain chemical. And so one chemical pathway is considered green, the other one is not. And so participants have to decide which one would they choose should they were to make the decision as part of their bigger strategy. And so it's interesting because there is no right or wrong answer, and there is a lot of gray area, and there is always a lot of discussion between which path is really greener. Again, we monitor the discussion and we provide feedback and stimulate further thinking on how to best make that decision. And to be honest, I learned a lot myself just reading comments, so I'm enjoying the assignments probably as much as students are.
Yeah, it's really incredible that you are working with people who are coming at this from so many different directions already, that they, most of them have at least tried doing some of this work, or have quite a bit of expertise, but just want to learn about to really dive deeper and hone in and build those skills. So it's really impressive to me that you'll see a really wide body of knowledge coming from the cohort itself. And
absolutely
get excited.
Yeah, and and you probably know best, but we had people from apparel and cosmetic industry and public health and health and safety sector operation. It's the background of people who are signing up is just so diverse that it just is intimidating.
It's really, it's fantastic. It makes me encouraged for the future that we have so many folks from so many different sectors interested in this topic and are pursuing this. So it's exciting for sure. So let's talk for a minute about this course, or this program has been around. We're in its fourth year now, and we are, what's interesting about this is that even in that time frame it took to put together this product, these courses, that there are new innovations happening and new tools becoming available all the time. And I know that this last winter, you had added some new content to the Green Principles of Green Chemistry course. Can you talk about why you did that and maybe an example of what you added for new content?
Sure. So as the green chemistry researchers and educators, we strive to keep up. And this particular course, we don't want to just present the textbook information. We want to present everything that's happening currently in the green chemistry community. And so that's why the content gets updated, and we keep on adding more information that's relevant to our community. Particularly as part of the work with United Nations, last year and a half, I've been traveling all around the world talking to practitioners in developing countries. And their feedback actually spurred changes in the certificate program. Basically, they were interested in a couple of additional fields of green chemistry, and so we decided to add that information into the certificate program as well. For example, before there wasn't much emphasis on green chemistry metrics. We decided that it's important to know if you are doing green chemistry. And so we included different tools and ways of checking if you're doing green chemistry within your space. So this was the significant addition. We also added an entire chapter on waste and waste management, but also recognizing that waste is sometimes not a waste. Waste can be a feedstock for another process. And so we as green chemists try to recognize that and perhaps seek value in something that's traditionally discarded. We also added content on catalysts and added more characteristics and what you should be looking for if you plan to design or plan to use a green catalyst. And so again, the material just became more robust with more emphasis of and view of the professional, someone on the ground that wants to make that change within their business.
Excellent. And then finally, can you talk about from the content in your course, is there something that you have noticed that students find the most valuable, or an example of how people use the content from the course going forward in their workplace?
This is an excellent question, and I think one of the things that people definitely enjoy is the interaction. So, we present content and we understand there's a lot of good information, but then how people take that information and exchange it and comment on this, I think that's the most valuable, because it's the community that you develop around green chemistry and how you take that knowledge and start interacting after the course is done. That's the most important.
Yeah.
So this, for now, this has been the most valuable experience. And I think you also gain more confidence if you do want to initiate a change in your workplace, whether you are a manager or CEO or a technical expert.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get that technical level of detail that gives you confidence to go in and make that suggestion or make that change. So it's again looking at green chemistry not only from typical technical perspective, but also connecting it to business and sustainability and why people should care.
Absolutely, and I would totally agree. So just so folks know, I actually took this program last year as a student, and it was really eye-opening to me that how so many of the exercises that are built in are about you creating that argument for why your company or why your work group should do this kind of activity. So you're really crafting that messaging and getting your data organized, your arguments in place, the cost analysis, the business side, the argument for all the different kind of business elements that can be for a change like this. But you keep seeing throughout these courses, you see that same sort of practice emphasized, and you do feel a lot more confident that you can walk away and make a proposal and have it have all of these different elements to it. And I think that that's a really good point about building confidence to do that kind of work. You get a chance to exercise those muscles that you don't necessarily get to do all the time at work, and you get a chance to do that as part of this program, and I think it's really helpful for folks. So that's spot on, I think. Well, thank you so much, Carolina. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the nuts and bolts of the program. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead and use that chat box to go ahead and put those out there. So we're going to jump back into the slide deck here about what, as a student, you should expect from these courses. So each one of these classes is a 5-credit class. It takes 3 of the classes to complete the certificate program. It is self-paced, but you can expect to spend about 5 to 10 hours per week. Each one of these courses is broken down into 5 modules with a new module every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, there's usually some sort of assignment expected out of the end of it. And so that 5 to 10 hours can fluctuate depending on, how deep of a dive into a subject you want to do and also your expertise with it. So, for example, going back to some of the chemistry principles, took me a little bit more time to brush up on some of those things I hadn't seen for a while. So I spent a little bit more time on that. And there's also lots of resources planted within all the coursework that you can go much deeper, additional readings, additional videos. So you can always expand that time to what you have capacity for, or save it for later as well. So I mentioned the assignments per module. All of the course materials are available at any time once the module has been opened, so it is paced out per module like that. And then the deadlines for each assignment along with each course is generally every 2 weeks. And that information on your deadlines is part of the syllabus that you will receive at the beginning of the course. So Carolina hinted at this, but we really have a wide variety of different sectors and types of folks who have been taking the certificate program for the last number of years. Engineers, chemists, material scientists, product managers, supply chain procurement professionals, sustainability consultants, coordinators, environmental managers, health and safety professionals, risk managers. There's a lot of variety there, and this isn't all inclusive. Some folks are, there's development folks, there's people who are in retail. We're seeing a lot of retail folks as well. So as far as prerequisites for this program, it's designed for students who have a 4-year degree and at least 2 years of professional experience. These are other professionals out in the field, so it can be helpful to have that background. And then people who have a basic knowledge of chemistry equivalent to a basic college level chemistry course will be helpful for this course as well. And then the application process. So our website, we'll send this out to you as well, but it's this is where you can find one-stop shopping for the Green Chemistry Chemical Stewardship Online Certificate Program on our website at osha.washington.edu. The registration pages are there as well. And again, this will be an email to you, so you don't have to go look on the site for it. So once you get on our site and you're ready to register, you create an account on our website and you register for 1 or all 3 of the courses at any time. The registration deadline is 2 weeks before the start of each course. You can register a little bit later than that, but we encourage that 2 weeks before. So you can take a look at the syllabus and that sort of thing in advance. And just so you know, an individual can sign up a la carte. You don't have to do all of the courses at the same time. And the other thing to note is that you don't have to take these courses in order. We think that they build off of each other, and it can be very helpful to take them fall through spring quarter in order, but it's not a requirement. So something to think about as well. It just requires completion of all 3 courses successfully to earn your certificate. Each course of, so 3 courses, each course is $910 and includes 5.0 CEUs. And then you can follow the prompts on the website to check out. And about 2 weeks before the course, you'll be provided with login information to access the course learning environment. And we'll get you all squared away before the start of the quarter. Just to note that the absolute deadline for registration for course 1 this fall is September 22nd, 2019. And so with that, I'm your program manager, Jill Teep. And again, I want to thank Carolina for taking the time to talk to us today. It's always a joy to talk to you, and I'm excited to dive in and see some of that new content. Thank you for taking the time to do that, and thank you for talking with us today.
Thank you so much, Jill. It's always a pleasure.
Great. All right, folks. Well, thank you for joining us, and we hope to have you join us this September. Don't forget, September 22nd is that deadline. And please contact me at jstod@uw.edu with any questions you have about the program, or if you'd like to get to know any of our other instructors before the program starts and learn more about their backgrounds as well. All right. Thank you so much. Take care.